Picture this. It's 2016. Gary and Pam from outside Philadelphia just retired. Gary's been reading about this one semiconductor ETF. It's been crushing everything else for years. So he puts a big chunk of their nest egg into it, almost $300,000. By 2021, that money has nearly tripled. Gary feels like a genius. Then 2022 hits. That ETF dropped 37%, and Gary and Pam are pulling $40,000 a year to live on. After the crash and their withdrawal, they're down to $590,000. They need a 69% gain just to get back to even. That's not a setback. That's a hole most retirees never climb out of. Today, I'm going to show you the 9 most popular ETFs of the last decade, ranked by their 10-year returns. You've probably seen lists like this before, but here's the part nobody tells you. The ETFs at the top of that list are the most dangerous ones for anyone who's retired or close to it. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly which of these 9 ETFs actually belong in a retirement portfolio, which ones to avoid entirely, and where to put each one so you don't get destroyed by hidden taxes. Quick note, I'm not a financial advisor or government employee. Everything here is for educational purposes only. For your specific situation, always check with a qualified professional. Let's talk with the scoreboard. SMH leads the pack at nearly 28% per year for a decade, VGT at 22%, QQQ close to 20%. These are monster returns. But look at that last column. In 2022, SMH dropped 37%, VGT dropped 34%, QQQ dropped 33%. Now look at the bottom. SCHD, it dropped just 3% in 2022. 3%. And it kept paying dividends the entire time. It actually raised its dividend by almost 14% that year. So which ETF do you actually want to own when you're living off your portfolio? The scoreboard says SMH is the best ETF of the decade, but it once dropped 85% and took over 17 years to recover. The scoreboard doesn't mention that part. So if the scoreboard is lying to you, what's the real story? That's exactly what I'm about to show you, and it starts with the crash test. The crash test. What happens when you're living off your portfolio? Here's the thing about market crashes. If you're 35 years old, a crash is a sale. You buy more and wait. But if you're 65 and pulling $40,000 a year to pay your bills, a crash isn't a sale. It's a permanent withdrawal at the worst possible price. This is called sequence of returns risk, and it's the #1 killer of retirement portfolios. Let me show you what this looks like with real numbers. Take Rita and Jim from Columbus, Ohio. Both 65, $1 million saved. They need $40,000 a year to live on. If Rita and Jim held SCHD after a 2022 style crash and their $40,000 withdrawal, they still have $928,000. They only need an 8% gain to recover. That's a normal year. But if they held VOO, they're down to $710,000. They need a 41% gain just to get back to where they started. And if they held SMH, they're at $590,000. They need a 69% gain. That's not recovery. That's a prayer. Here's the myth. The best ETF is the one with the highest return. Here's the truth. The best ETF is the one that doesn't collapse when you need it most handy. SCHD also gives Rita and Jim something VOO and SMH can't: cash flow. At a 3.3% yield, their $1 million SCHD position pays around $33,000 in dividends, which covers more than 80% of their withdrawal without selling a single share. VOO pays about $11,000. The rest comes from selling shares, and in a crash, those share sales lock in your losses. So now you know which ETFs survive crashes and which ones don't. But here's where it gets really interesting. The crash isn't even the most expensive part. The tax bill is, and almost nobody is talking about it.
This is the part that no other YouTube channel is covering, and it's costing retirees real money. Most people think about taxes when they sell an investment, but if you're retired and collecting Social Security, the dividends from your ETFs can trigger a hidden tax cascade every single year. Let me show you how this works. Sandra and Ray from Tucson, both 67, they collect $30,000 a year in Social Security, and they hold $500,000 in SCHD in a regular brokerage account. SCHD pays about 3.3%, so that $500,000 generates roughly $17,000 in dividends every year. Here's where the trap springs. The IRS calculates something called provisional income. That's your regular income plus half your Social Security plus your investment income. If that number crosses $44,000 for a married couple, 85% of your Social Security becomes taxable. Sandra and Ray's provisional income, about $32,000 from other sources, plus $15,000 from half their Social Security, plus $17,000 from SCHD dividends. That's $64,000, well past the threshold. The result? They're paying taxes on 85% of their Social Security. And in that phase-in zone, their effective tax rate on each extra dollar of income can hit 44%. That's the Social Security torpedo. Now, if Sandra and Ray held QQQ instead, their dividend income would be about $2,500, not $17,000. Their provisional income drops by almost $15,000. That could save them $4,000 to $6,000 a year in taxes. But wait, does that mean QQQ is better? No, it means SCHD is in the wrong account. Put SCHD inside a traditional IRA, and those dividends don't show up on your tax return until you withdraw. They don't count towards provisional income. They don't trigger the Social Security torpedo, and they don't push you over an IRMAA cliff. What's IRMAA? It's a Medicare surcharge. Cross $218,000 in income as a married couple, and your Medicare premiums jump by $2,300 extra per year. High-dividend ETFs in the wrong account can push you over that line. Growth ETFs like QQQ belong in a Roth. They grow fast and you never pay taxes on that growth. SCHD belongs in a traditional IRA, where its dividends are shielded from the Social Security torpedo and IRMAA. VOO and VXUS belong in a taxable account because they're extremely tax efficient, and VXUS gives you a foreign tax credit you'd lose inside an IRA. And here's the other trap. If QQQ sits in your traditional IRA and compounds at 20% a year, a $500,000 position becomes $3.4 million in 10 years. When your required minimum distributions kick in at 73, you'd be forced to withdraw over $128,000 that year, all taxed as ordinary income. That's the RMD time bomb. Before I show you why the next decade is going to look completely different, drop a comment right now. Which of these 9 ETFs are you holding, and which account is it in? I read every single comment, and I'll tell you if your placement might be costing you money. So now you know which ETFs survive crashes, and you know how the wrong account costs you thousands. But there's one more thing you need to see, because the next decade isn't going to look anything like the last, and the shift is already happening.
Everyone loves looking at 10-year returns. But here's the problem. Those returns are a rear-view mirror, and right now, every major investment firm is saying the road ahead looks completely different. Vanguard is projecting U.S. large-cap growth stocks to return just 3 to 5% a year over the next decade. That's the QQQ and VGT neighborhood. Meanwhile, they're projecting value stocks like SCHD at 5 to 8%, and international stocks like VXUS at nearly 6 to 8%. Why? Valuations. The CAPE ratio for the S&P 500 right now is 39. The only time it was higher was right before the dot-com crash, and we all know how that ended. And it's not just Vanguard. JP Morgan, BlackRock, Morningstar, they're all saying the same thing. The Magnificent 7 stocks now make up about 33% of the entire S&P 500. That's the highest concentration in modern market history. If you own VOO plus QQQ plus VGT plus SMH, you might have 15 to 20% of your entire portfolio in a single stock. NVIDIA, that's not diversification, that's a bet, and the rotation is already showing up in the numbers. Year to date in 2026, SCHD is up nearly 12%. VOO is down 5 to 7%. QQQ is down even more. SMH is down double digits.
The decade's worst-performing ETF is now outperforming the best ones by 16 points or more. That's not a blip, that's a trend reversing. History shows us this happens in cycles. Growth dominates for a while, then value takes over. The current growth cycle has been running for about 13 years. That's the longest in modern history. And every time growth dominated for this long in the past, value went on to outperform for the next 5 to 10 years. Smart retirees don't chase last decade's winners. They position for the next decade. And the data is screaming where that next decade is heading. So let's put it all together. Which of these 9 ETFs actually make the cut? The retirement scorecard, the verdict. We've looked at returns, stress-tested crashes, run the tax math, and we've seen where the market is heading. Now it's time for the real ranking, not by 10-year returns, by retirement survivability. Core tier, SCHD gets the top spot. Low volatility, 3.3% yield, shallow drawdowns, and it actually grows its dividend about 11% a year. Inside a traditional IRA, it's sheltered from the Social Security torpedo and IRMAA cliffs. Right behind it, VOO, the growth backbone of any portfolio. In a taxable account, it's ultra tax efficient with almost no capital gains distributions. And VXUS for international diversification. Every major firm projects international stocks to beat U.S. stocks over the next decade. VXUS in a taxable account also captures the foreign tax credit. Satellite tier, QQQ or SPMO in a Roth IRA. Small allocation, 5 to 10%. This is your growth kicker. It compounds tax-free and you're not relying on it for income. Avoid tier for retirees. VGT and SMH, the decade's top performers by return, but VGT has 45% of its money in just 3 stocks, and SMH has only 26 holdings total, with a historical drawdown of 85%. These are incredible ETFs for a 30-year-old. They are portfolio killers for someone drawing income. Remember Rita and Jim? Here's what a smart version of their portfolio looks like. 30% SCHD in a traditional IRA, 15% VOO in a taxable account, 10% VXUS in taxable, 5% QQQ in a Roth, and 40% in bonds and cash as a spending buffer. That portfolio yields about 2% overall. It held up in 2022 with roughly a 10% drop on the equity side, and it's positioned for the decade ahead, not the decade behind. The best ETF isn't the one that grew the fastest. It's the one that lets you sleep at night and never run out of money. If someone you care about is picking ETFs based on a 10-year return chart, share this video with them right now. It could save them from a very expensive mistake. Which of these 9 ETFs surprised you the most? And are you rethinking where you hold it? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. If you're building retirement income and want to stay ahead of the tax traps and market shifts that nobody else covers, subscribe to this channel. I break this down every week. And if you're holding JEPQ in your portfolio, you need to see what's coming next, because the tax trap on that one is even worse than what we covered today.